I'm Pernille Tranberg. I'm a journalist by profession, and the past 6 months I've been a fellow at University of Southern Denmark, where I've been looking at what we can do to make non-biased content more visible and not let it drown in commercial messages online. And the first thing I'll tell you about is 3 media trends which are important or have influenced my conclusions in this research project. The first one is that we all have our own media platforms today. Whether you're a teenager, if you're a grown-up woman selling clothes, if you're Bill Gates or if you're the Pope, everybody has their own media platform and can publish content all over the world anytime. The second trend is, how are we actually consuming content? It's changing in a very fast. More and more people get it through social media, or search, or aggregation. And fewer get it directly from news media sites. It's a bit more in Denmark than in the US, because the publishers many years ago managed to stop Google News from launching in Denmark. But if you look at young people between 18 and 24, 40% of them get their news through social media. That means that we're not getting a whole product anymore. We're getting all our news fragmented, unbundled, in lots of small pieces from different places. The last trend is that we see all these new players out there doing content. They're doing news as well. Even Facebook, our walls on Facebook are called news. If I have a new cat, it's news, right? So others are taking over, and they're borrowing our expressions to borrow some of the credibility we have in the news business. We have partner and member news, which I'm going to show you later. We have branded newsrooms, we have editor-in-chiefs of content marketing, etc. And now we even have Facebook paper. And the biggest problem, I think, online is that we have a massive content confusion. It's really hard to know what is what. What is an article? What is a branded message? What is an advertorial? What is advertising? We have what is called advertorials, and an advertorials is an advertisement hidden in an article, sold as an article. Print magazines, lifestyle magazines, have been using it for many, many years, and this is a good example of an advertorial, because the layout is different from the rest of the magazine, and you can clearly see here annonce, which means in Danish advertisement. So the reader will know immediately this is not a non-biased article. This is an advertisement. This is a bad example, because everything is layouted in the same way as a magazine, and annonce, the advertisement, is so small it's really, really hard to see. And this is a very ugly example, because there's no advertisement and it's layouted in the same way. And we see a lot of these examples with content in an article like this, so people have no idea what is behind the message. Forbes in the US are a first mover online to use advertorials, and they call it content marketing or native marketing. And this is an ad, and this is an article. It's pretty hard to see what's the difference. And of course the advertiser would really like to use this to get out their message, because people will click on it and think that it's an article. This is another Danish example from niche media, business to business media. This is an advertisement, an advertorial written by a company who is a member of this news portal. And this is an article written by a journalist hired by the news portal. I don't know if you can see the difference. If you look at the box with the most red articles, you can see these 2 articles are made by professional journalists. These 2 articles are made by companies. In Denmark, it would be they are illegal, because you have to write advertisement on top of the story. This is an okay example of sponsored content or advertorial from Quartz, owned by The Atlantic, a digital magazine, because it's pretty easy to see it's sponsored, and all the rest is normal articles or editorial articles. But it would be illegal in Denmark because sponsor content, nobody knows what it means. You have to write exactly the word advertisement. So a good advertorial is that you use a different layout, different fonts, and that you put a clear label on that it's something bought by a company who has an interest in the message in the advertorial. If we go to other communities and traditional journalism, we see lots and lots of bloggers. They're doing the same as well. They don't get a salary like a lot of journalists do. So they have to make a living on advertisement on their blog. And this woman is a celebrity in Denmark, doing a lot of stories about lifestyle stuff, fashion. And if you call her to ask, can you please write about my product? She will say, well, there's no products on my blog which has not paid to be there. And this guy in the Danish television made a complete fake story one day last year where they invented this bottle of water, and they made this nice label, called it Emperor water, and they just filled it with tap water, and they made a whole story around it and asked this woman, the blogger, to write a blog about it. They also told her that the plastic of the bottle would dissolve in nature as fast as an apple, and everything she wrote in her blog. And at the end of the blog, you could see a small set sponsored content, but you have been reading it all believing this is something which is probably true. Other interesting developments in this business is that we are seeing companies now changing completely. We see Coca-Cola, they're not a software company anymore, they're a media company, and they changed their corporate website to a more newsy website. It looks like a news portal, constantly changing the content. We have Jyske Bank TV in Denmark. They have a staff of 10, and for 5 years they have been doing stories like journalists. The manager says that we work like we were an editorial newsroom. They send staff or journalists to everywhere in the world to cover interesting conferences, and they sell their content to traditional media platforms. This example is Johnson & Johnson, who has a kind of a theme platform here, informing pregnant women about their pregnancy. And of course they sell products for pregnant women as well. But they have like 35 experts working at the platform to verify content. Why should I go to a newspaper or a magazine or anybody when I can get it from here? We also have 100% user-generated platforms. If you have a problem with your children, you look up at Google, what can you do about it? This will turn up very high in the search results. And this is 100% users just telling you what you can do if your kid's arm is broken. It's not verified at all, but it is competing with content which is verified. And a lot of people don't know, can I trust this or can't I trust it? Finally, we have fake content. We do have so much fake content out there. If you look at reviews, for example, user reviews, we know that they decide if a product should sell, if a book, how good is the book selling, how good is the film or the hotel or anything. User reviews actually decide. And everybody can buy a user review. You can just go to this website called Fiverr and you pay money and they write a positive review for you. And Gartner estimates that between 10 and 15% of all user reviews are fake. So finally we have what World Economic Forum calls digital wildfires. That is complete fake stories. This is after the storm Sandy. A picture was circulating on social media with a shark swimming around. It's completely fake. And according to World Economic Forum, these digital wildfires is a great threat to world peace actually, because it can just circulate so fast. So being journalists or being people or bloggers or experts who want to do content which is credible and non-biased, we should look at some new ethics. And Pointer Institute published this book last year about new ethics in journalism. And instead of having this principle that we are independent, we should look at transparency. We should be much more transparent in how we're producing content in the future. Some expert will say that, well, teenagers know exactly what they can trust and what they can't trust. They scrutinize every little text they find online to find out what are the motives. Other experts say it's really hard to distinguish. There are very few studies, but one study showed that 60% can't tell the difference between an advertorial and an article. We really need more studies on this. It's hard to know where we are. But at least what we could do if we are a publisher and we have a code of conduct, according to the EU, there was a high level looking at media and democracy, and they recommend that at least put your code of conduct on the front page and show what are the principles you work after. If you're an individual or if you have a brand with lots of individual journalists, it's a very good idea, I believe, to make individual disclosures. Tell about yourself. This woman, Kara Swisher, is a very good role model for this. She started Recode recently with some other people. Before, she worked at All Things Digital, owned by Wall Street Journal, and they all have ethics statements. She is married to a woman working at Google. They are covering Google a lot, and she explains in her ethics statement how she's dealing with that her wife is a Google staff. But she's also, and that's what you should put, we should all put in an individual disclosure. We should tell about how are we compensated for our work, what clients do we have stocks in the companies we write about or report about, do we accept gifts, do we steal from others, or do we credit our sources before we copy paste and stuff like that. Also, if we are working in any networks or boards, are we paid for that? Be completely open about your professional work as a journalist or as a blogger or as an expert. This is not only for professional journalists. The occasional disclosure is also interesting. A lot of bright bloggers are actually using that every time they do a story, and they have to say, well, actually I'm a lecturer here, or I have an interest in this. And this is an example where a newspaper tells the readers that they actually got this story from a spin doctor in the parliament. But as most journalists would say, it's really easy to say, well, I'm very good. I produce all my content after these ethical guidelines. Can you prove it? So I believe in the long run, we have to have some kind of certification. We have to make some standards and have a completely independent certification body. And we could look at, for example, organic products or fair trade products and get some inspiration. It's a positive labeling. It would also be a way we could brand or market our serious content, our trustworthy content. But it has to be voluntary. It shouldn't be state-run at all. It has to be completely voluntary, but there's a lot of work behind a certification body. So I couldn't do that within half a year, but I think that would be a brilliant way to move on in this area. And if we have a certification body, we could use more and more big data tools to help us verify content. I just want to tell you about one, for example, reviewskeptic.com is one of the first really interesting tools where you can copy a hotel user review and you can paste it into that website, and with 90% accuracy it can tell you whether it's true or deceitful, because it has analyzed lots of other reviews. And in the future we get more and more tools to help us verify content, whether a picture is true or not, or manipulated. So finally, my recommendations are, I've been through many of them, but one very important thing is to make everybody media active. All media consumers should be media active. That means that they're not only producing content themselves for their platforms, but they're also very critical. They should be much more critical towards what they're reading. The more critical media users become, the better media we get. So think like a journalist. Individuals producing content who want to make credible content should be open about their profession and make individual disclosures. Brands and individuals should try and avoid content marketing or advertorials if possible, because it's really, really risky towards your credibility. And finally, we have to remember this is not only for professional journalists, it's for everybody. It's for bloggers, experts, even companies. If they want to produce content and be open about it and have disclosures, they should be part of this, because we all have our own platforms today. Thank you very much.